This is a short instructional video on care and maintenance of the Sovereign 8 tube single canopy sunbed, which is available to buy online at www.siestasunbeds.co.uk. Very reliable 8 tube sunbed, and I'm going to quickly show you now how to remove and change the tubes and just general maintenance and troubleshooting if you happen to have a problem with the sunbed. So the first thing on a matter of safety is obviously unplug the sunbed from the mains before you start to do anything. The sunbed is currently, as you can see, set up on the stand ready. So what we're going to do is we're going to just flip it over onto its face side so that we've got good access to the tubes, and just to make it a little bit easier to carry out the bits and pieces. So as you can see now, the sunbed is on its back side as such. So the first job we need to do is to remove the wire guards, and how we do this is it takes a little bit of firm pressure. Is just pull back like that to release it. Same with the next one. Pull back to release. Final wire guard. Pull back, release, and then all three will lift off. So I'm going to put these safely down the side. Now, if the job you're doing is replacing the starters, or one of the starters, if you've got a faulty tube or the tube is flickering or not coming on properly, a lot of the time it's just down to the small starter. Now the starters are fitted on like a bayonet fitting, so it's just a gentle twist and out, and to put them back in is a reversal of what I've just done, and then just twist it round to the right. So that's the starter, how you take the starter out, how you put the starter back in. So to remove the tubes, you'll notice on the top there's a small indentation, and that's showing the correct position that the tube should be in when it's fitted correctly. Now you'll notice at the other end of the tube, if we follow it along, you can also see that the logo is on the top. Now this particular tube is a Powerlight Turbo, but it may be a Philips logo, it may be a Cosmolux logo, just whichever type of tube you happen to have fitted in the bed. But all makes of tubes usually have some kind of indentation just to show that it is in the correct position when fitted. Now removal of the tube is to turn the tube clockwise or anti-clockwise half a turn, and if you watch the little green slot you can see it open and then the pins will come out. So I'll just pop that back in so you can see it again. So that's the correct fitting of the tube. So now we're turning it until you see the little green gate open, and now the tube can be lifted freely out. Now take your time doing this, because it's there's a little bit of a knack to adjust it. I'll just put the tubes over in the corner. So I'm just repeating the process, half a turn basically for each of the tubes, so then the tubes can be lifted carefully out and just stored upright. Now if the job you're doing is a straightforward tube replacement, then this really is as far as you need to go, because you've seen now how to take the tubes out. To put the tubes back in is a direct reversal of what you've just been shown. Tubes and any accessories for the Sovereign beds are available from www.siestasunbeds.co.uk. This is an ex-rental sunbed, which currently They are available from siestasunbeds.co.uk for between £175 and £195 plus delivery. They are excellent sunbeds, so it really is a good buy. Now, having removed the final tube, I'm now going to take all the starters out so that we can take the back reflector off to show you the workings inside the bed and show you any potential problems that might arise. So all of the starters, as we showed you earlier, just half a turn, a bayonet fitting, simple to a normal light bulb type fitting. So it's just the left turn, take them out, to pop them back in, it's just a turn back. Turn to take them out, pop it in, to put it back. Straightforward. Next job, and don't be too put off by this because it's very, very simple to do. We're going to take out the reflector, which will reveal the wiring behind the starters and the timers, etc. So the electrical screwdriver will do the job. There's 5 retaining screws, 1 in each corner. These don't need to be done up ridiculously tight, they just need to be gently tightened down. So that's the 4 outer screws removed, and then there's an extra screw which is in the centre of the reflector, as you can see there. So having removed all 5 screws, the reflector is now ready to come out. Now a little tiny bit fiddly to get the reflector out. The best way of doing it is to slide it over one side and just gently lift it out. You need to be careful because this edge here is quite a sharp edge and you don't really want to be catching the side of your hand on it. If you just move along gently like that, you'll see it will lift out quite easily. Popping it back in is an exact reversal where you just put it down. What you want to try to avoid is not to sort of yank at it where you end up putting kinks in it, and you'll find then it won't sit back as nicely as it would otherwise do. So once the reflector's out, I'm going to stand that up over here, and then we're going to have a look at the inside workings of the Sovereign Sunbed. As I say, the Sovereign Sunbed is available from siestasunbeds.co.uk online. Now, looking straight away at the flex, if you are troubleshooting the bed in any way, if there's any sort of problem, first thing to check is that this is all nice and tight. This gland nut is tightened up here. You know, there's nothing. I'll just loosen that off if I possibly can. Occasionally there's a problem where this sort of thing will wear loose, which is easily identified because you can see there's quite a lot of movement, and that's just simply a case of holding the nut and just tightening the other side up. You don't need to go mad with it, you don't need to put a spanner and a bar on it or anything like that, just that's quite sufficient. Now moving just round this way a little bit, you'll see to actually hold the wire in place there's a P-clip here. Always check that P-clip's in position, because if that P-clip does come out, then what you tend to find is there's always a danger that one of these wires will get tugged off the timer if you happen to pull on this flex a little bit too sharply. Now this particular model of sunbed is like all modern sunbeds now, in that it has twin safety timers, which is now a legal requirement for sunbeds, new sunbeds sold in the UK. So first thing I'm checking on here, I'm checking the earth is in situ, the earth wire is correctly connected, and I'm now looking at the timer. Again, as I said at the start of the video, the first thing to do is to make sure the power is switched off at the mains, and obviously the sunbed is unplugged before you start any dismantling at all of the sunbed. So I'm looking now, the live wire's in place there, the neutral's in place firmly, and then the joining wires that join the two timers together are all nicely in place. Now some of these sovereigns will have an hour counter fitted, which is basically clocks up the number of hours the sunbed has been used for. Or very often what companies will do is they'll put, if they retube the bed, they'll put a replacement hour counter in to give an accurate record of how many hours the sunbed has clocked up with use. These are normally fitted sort of in this sort of position. Obviously there'd be another hole cut out in the metalwork of the sunbed. The hour counter would fit in there. Now there would be an extra 2 wires running a negative and a positive to the hour counter. Now again, if there's a problem with the sunbed, there's always a possibility it could be a wire that's popped out of the hour counter and is touching on the bodywork, causing it to trip or similar sort of problems. So that's another thing to look at. Just check these wires run into here nicely, that they're all firmly screwed in and everything is fitted. So that's the basic. Where the mains comes into the sunbed, it goes into one timer, into the other timer, and then that starts then to power up your choke mechanisms. Now moving along to the chokes, you'll notice this is an 8-tube bed, 8-tube sovereign bed. This particular one supplied by siestasunbeds.co.uk, and each tube is powered by a choke. So there's 8 chokes in this particular bed, as I'm just counting along. Now another obvious thing to check for is where the wiring loom goes over. Very, very occasionally there may be, on some beds, I've never actually known it on a sovereign before, but on some sunbeds you'll find that there can possibly be a little bit of chafing on these wires if they're pulled down too sharply over the metal. So it's another good thing to check. Just check the condition of the wires, check there's no sort of cuts or bare metal showing where it can touch or arc out against the metalwork of the sunbed. Next thing to check is just to look each of the chokes and just check that the wires are all firmly in. These wires are self-locking in that if they have come out, it's just a case of popping it back in and it will click in and lock itself in place. It's a simple design, but it does work, it does the job. So we're looking here, we're checking, we can see all the choke wires are all in correctly as we go right the way along the bed, and we can see that each of them are in. Now the next thing to check are the what we call tomb holders, which are the tube holders at the end of the bed. Now there's wires that go up into these. Now these are a little bit on the fiddly side to get out, in that you need to tilt them forward. It's a self-clicking mechanism which holds them in, but if you tilt them forward carefully, what you need to be careful of is that you don't snap this little clip off by forcing them too much. Now what you're looking for on here is you're looking to check that the wire is in situ properly, the wire fits in. Now removal of these wires, what we normally do is we use something like a paper clip or another little bit of wire which we pop down there. I think the screwdriver is possibly too big, but if you see just by the side of each wire, if you pop a paper clip down there, you'll find if you push the paper clip down, that will release the wire out. If you're troubleshooting and you find that one of these wires has come out, again it's a simple case. They are self-locking wires, So as soon as you push them in, you'll feel a click and it will click firmly into place. Now looking at this, again, this is the part that slots under here, and this is the little locking lug that locks it back into place. Now they all come out the same way, so obviously I'm not going to take each individual one out to demonstrate for you, but I'll just show you carefully now how to pop this back in. So just pull the wires gently down and slot the front piece in first, so that sits in nicely, and then you'll find then gentle pressure, just put that back until that clicks into place. So we've now checked, you know, if you were troubleshooting a problem on the bed, you would check each and every one of these, and if for instance you had a bed that was cutting out or was tripping or something like that, there would quite clearly be something wrong that usually you can see. It's usually a wire that's come out from somewhere or a wire that's been chafing. So I'm now going to demonstrate how to quickly rebuild the bed back up. Having checked everything, we're quite happy with all the wiring inside. We're quite happy that everything is as it should be in there. So the first thing to look at, and the first little tip I'll give you, is when you put the reflector back on, you need to make sure, I'll just take this power counter out that's not actually fitted to this bed. You need to make sure it goes in the same way as it came back out. So I'm going to pop that along there, and what I'm looking for, again, if you just rest it on the edge and then just very gently lower it down, use your screwdriver. What I'm looking for is to see that the centre hole lines up, which will then tell me I've got it the right way round. Now for the benefit of the video, I'm going to say that I deliberately put that in the wrong way round, which of course I didn't. But if you do happen to pop it in the wrong way round, it's just a straightforward case of take it back out. Don't struggle or be tempted to drill new holes. So it's just a case of take it out, turn it round. Always look to align the centre hole first. Once you've got the centre hole lined up, which if my colleague can just zoom in a little bit, you'll see the centre hole is lined up. You'll usually find then, when you put the screws in, that the other holes will simply follow suit. What I'm going to do here, when I do put the screws in, I'm not going to over tighten any of the screws until I've got them all just sort of sitting basically in situ first. So that's the first one in loose. As you can see, they all more or less line up. If you do need any assistance at all with maintenance of your Sovereign Sunbed, you can email Siesta Sunbeds directly. The email address is info@siestasunbeds.co.uk, where there's always somebody on hand who can give you free advice on any aspect, any sunbed related problems you may be encountering, or just general advice on sunbeds. So with all 5 screws in, I'm now going to tighten them up. As I said earlier, no need to go mad with this. You don't need to be looking to sort of lock them up like a truck wheel nut or something. You just need a fairly firm, just quick tighten down of the screws. So we've got all 5 screws in place. Now it's up to you what you put in next, whether you put in the tubes or the starters. I personally always opt for putting the starters in first, because it gives you a little bit, makes it a little less fiddly then to put the tubes in. So the starters are all on a bayonet fitting, very similar to your normal household light bulb. So it's just pop them in the slots, half a turn, and away you go. Now when you come to put the tubes in, if the reason you're putting the tubes in is because you've had a broken tube at some stage, what you may well find is if the tube's broke while it's been in situ, then these little green slots that you can see here that need to be vertical when the tube is fitted in, if the tube has been broken, you'll find that the slot is already round like that. So if you're replacing a broken tube, the first thing that you need to do is just look at these ends, and this is how they need to look before you put the tubes in, with the green slot lined up vertically. If you do find one like that from a broken tube, just pop the end of the tube in before you start, just one end. Don't try and get the two ends in together, and then just very gently turn it round until you've got it in the vertical position. Do the same with the other end, and then you'll find the tube will go nicely in. So to put the tubes in, what I'm looking for, I've got the green slots vertical, I've got the two pins in a vertical position, so I'm popping one end in like that, dropping the other end in straight, and then turning it half a turn, looking for the all-important little notch that tells me the tube is in the correct position. Now try for neatness to put all the tubes in with the logos the same end. This really is quite a quick process. I've just slowed things down a little to make it a little bit easier to understand whilst we do the quick video of doing the job. But it's a straightforward job, can be done easily at home. Key issues to it, as with any electrical appliance, always unplug it from the mains before you start doing anything. So the tubes will all go nicely back in. What I'm going to do for demonstration purposes is I'm going to put the final tube in. I'll fit that in correctly, and then I'll show you what happens when we switch the sunbed on. So the first 7 tubes have been put in correctly. Final tube, what I'm going to do is I'm going to miss putting the lug in. If you can see what I've done, I've just put sort of one side of the lug in without locating it all the way down, and I've turned it, and I've accepted, or I've thought to myself, you know, that perhaps looks right, that's going to be okay. So now what we're going to do, we're going to quickly plug the sunbed in. Because it's a double timer sunbed, we need to turn both safety timers on in order for the bed to work. So we're turning 1 timer, 2 timer, and I'll just flick the other plug on for the main socket, so just bear with me 1 second. So we've now got the main socket put on. As you can see, all of the tubes have come on, apart from the one that's been put in incorrectly. Now don't be tempted to try and sort it while the power's on. Always safety in mind. So the first thing to do, switch the power off at the mains, unplug the sunbed. The timers are mechanical, so you'll still hear the timers ticking. That's not a problem as long as the sunbed is unplugged from the mains. So I'm now troubleshooting the tube. What is the problem? What have I done wrong? Fairly obvious. If I look, I can see, yeah, that's what I've done. Look, I haven't put both of the things in properly. So I'm lifting it out both ends, and then I'm just going to have another attempt at it. So nice and straight. What I did last time when I did it wrong, I only put it half in and turned it like that. So nice and straight, firmly all the way down. Same the other end. Click it round. Visible indentation is in line with the green slot at the top. I'm now going to re-plug the sunbed in. The timers are still going, so as soon as I plug it in and switch it on, it should all come on. Just bear with me a sec, let me just switch the again. Yeah. So we've got that. Now, with the tubes on, very often if a sunbed hasn't been used for any length of time or has been stood up vertically, you may notice the colouring of the tubes will be darker in the centre. Now this is nothing at all to worry about, it's perfectly normal, and you'll find after 2 or 3 minutes the tubes will all colour up nicely once everything gets flowing, once the gases get flowing around. So you can probably just see it there. The tubes are lighter at the end and they're a little bit darker in the middle. Now after a minute or so they will all colour up, and you can see now it's gradually moving down as everything starts to flow. So I'm just going to show you now how to pop the wire guards back on, which again I would recommend you unplug it from the mains, but just for speed of finishing off the video I'm going to just show you here. So we slot in one side and then it's just gentle but quite a bit of pressure. What you don't want to be doing is absolutely yanking it so you bend it. You're just putting a little bit of a kink in it so that it will slot in like that, and that's perfectly in position. So again, one side slotted under, and then quite a bit of pressure just to do that. Slide it down into position. Same with this one. Very, very good sunbed, very, very robust sunbed. As you can see, they're well drilled, they're taken knocks, there's not a problem with them, and they're supplied by siestasunbeds.co.uk. Information on these sunbeds or any other sort of sunbeds, if you email directly to info@siestasunbeds.co.uk. Free advice is always available on any aspects of sunbed maintenance. Thank you very much.